Dell server, or even your MD's laptop, that can be a game changer for the business. There are also several threats. There are the threat of hackers. I like what Robert Muela said of the FBI. He said that there are two types of companies: those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. The truth is, this is a threat that we all live with right now. There is also the threat of malicious insiders, which is very rampant in Nigeria, where people, you give access to your system, they exploit the vulnerabilities in your system to take advantage of it. And I think the reason why this is so rampant is because many organizations have their systems are not properly configured. They contain so many weaknesses. I give you an example. Just last year, Deloitte Nigeria did a survey of all the e-business platforms in Nigeria, and we analyzed we analyzed 120 e-business platforms in Nigeria, and we realized that a number of them appear to be vulnerable. As a matter of fact, over 28% of them appear to transmit user credentials in clear text. That means if you have the right tools, you can see people's password even as they are transmitted, and these are some of the issues. Now, talking about the external threats, there is also a threat that goes on the internet that may not even affect your systems, but can bring down, can affect your shareholders' value, can affect your share price. There is the popular phishing scam, which we all receive these days, phishing emails. There's also what fake profile on social media. Imagine I go to social media right now, let's say Facebook, and I create a fake profile for your MD, and I use that profile to transact with unsuspecting Nigerians. That affects your brand, and it can also affect your business. There's also something very common these days, it's called negative mention, whereby somebody goes to the internet and says something bad about your company, and before you know what's happening, that thing goes viral. Now imagine you have a fast food place, and I come there and I take a meat pie, and I go online and say, can you imagine I just ate meat pie in this place, and I saw a cockroach in the meat pie, and I put it on Facebook. Within seconds, imagine if that was liked and shared by over 1 million people. You may have the best of strategies, you may have the best of processes, but that information on the internet which you've not taken care of can affect your business, and you're wondering why the customer is not coming. Now, these are some of the emerging threats that we started seeing in Nigeria of recent.
So let me ask you, Pattison, it's quite interesting that February 14 is Valentine's Day, and that's the day that the CBN, the now suspended CBN governor, called a lot of people in the banking industry to come together for the implementation of biometric authentication of all bank customers. What's your view regarding how this will improve the overall security in the banking environment?
Thank you. The CBN biometric project is a very welcome development. This is a very direct response to the inadequacies in the identification system in Nigeria, and is a major problem in the financial industry, because for our customers to be properly identified, today we have instances where people can bear several names and have several accounts in a single bank, the same person. The project being embarked upon by the central bank is going to solve that problem. And so very soon we will have people who can be identified only by one name, by their biometric data, through this project. And so that will help improve the KYC, know your customer process in our banks, and which is the very bottom, which is the very platform on which the fight against money laundering and countering terrorism lies on. Because today we hear that there's Boko Haram, which is terrorism, and this Boko Haram is funded by people, and they are human beings who own accounts in some financial institutions.
So what advantage do I have if I have accounts in different names in a bank?
Okay, I tell you, from what Tope said about the type of attacks that can take place in the financial institution, if a hacker hacks into a bank and wants to move money, typically they will have, from insider information, no thresholds that they can move money on. So they can decide to move 1 million naira into 100 accounts, fake accounts. And if this happens, it means you have moved about 100 million naira through fake 100 accounts. So the number of accounts a fraudster has in a bank gives him more opportunities to move funds illegally from a financial institution.
Okay.
And that is what this biometric project is going to help us to stop. And again, beyond just the biometric, the KYC, the biometric project will also help us to manage credit background checks.
Okay.
But his picture is there. The bank has his photograph, hasn't it?
The bank has its photograph, and it takes
a photograph.
it takes a higher level of technology to be able to have picture face recognition, to be able to tie the face to all the names that the fraudster.
Okay. Well, we have to wrap up now. So the final word from you, Tope, in just one sentence, as an expert on cybersecurity, what do you think a step, at least one step, that companies can take to avoid emerging cyber threats? Just one, so that we can wrap up now.
One sentence is not something you can
Even just one.
What I would say is that
yes.
we should not focus on just security tools, because there's something we say in Deloitte that a fool with a tool is still a fool. You should focus on intelligence. You should try to see how you can understand the peculiarities of the risk that are facing your organization and how to deal with the risk. And ask yourself questions like, what is my business and how am I trying to achieve my aims? What kind of technology am I using, and what are the risks in those technologies? What do I have somebody at the board level who understands cyber security? By the time you start asking the right questions, how do I monitor the issue that affect my brand or the internet? When you begin to ask the right questions with a bid to gather intelligence, then you are on the right path to solving the problem.
That's the final full stop. Thank you very much for that sentence.
Mr. Tope Aladenusi, Risk Advisory Partner at Deloitte, Nigeria, and Pattison Boleigha, Chief Compliance Officer, Access Bank PLC. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for coming to alert us about the threats in cyberspace. Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting discussion.